Hi guys, it's Lena here from OneAthlete. In this video, we'll have a chat with Coach Maria about mental health and mental performance for athletes. Maria dives into the importance of reflection, how to deal with failure, and how she uses visualization as a tool. All these things are things you can work on with the OneAthlete app, so don't forget to use Maria's code MARIA25 for a 25% discount on your subscription. Here is Coach Maria.
My name is Coach Maria. I grew up in Canada, so I was born and raised here. I grew up playing soccer or football from a very young age. I have a brother who's less than a year older than me, so I always was around him, wanting to be with his friends and with him playing. And I grew up playing here. I played at a really high level until I was about 14, and I had the opportunity to go over to Italy and play. And I moved to Italy for a year and in a bit and played there all the way up from a Division 4 or D club all the way to the first team and playing with the U19. So I had an opportunity at a young age to play. It only furthered my love for football, and I came back here and ended up with a scholarship to the United States. Like a lot of athletes, I got hurt and tried to make a comeback, but decided I was kind of near the end of my career. I started to really fall in love with coaching from my college coach. He made me fall in love with the game, and I came back to Canada, worked a little bit here in a full-time job and coaching on the side, and then just decided in 2015 to move all the way to England to pursue my coaching badges. So went back to Europe, coached and did my badges there, and then started this kind of empire I have here in Canada, doing coaching and different events for mainly female players. We do some stuff with males, but that's kind of the journey. It's been an amazing journey, and I can't believe I wake up every day and get to be involved in football. I think over the years, mental health wasn't really talked about when I was growing up playing. I think the way of coaching has really changed, and mental health has become a huge piece in players' performance. I think it was an area that was untapped, and now it's being tapped into more and more. More resources are being shared. More coaches are getting knowledge in it and going through courses and getting insight into it, where we can pass this down to athletes. I think working on the youth side all the way up to a professional setting on players, it's okay to say you're having an off day, or something is bothering you. I think the more players and people in general can communicate this around mental health, I think the conversations can get bigger, and we can be able to share resources and help players or athletes out. So it's a huge part of the game, especially in a team setting. As much as soccer and football is a team setting, it's still an individual performing, and I think that's the main piece people miss. Is some people do great and thrive off other people's energy in a team sport, but I think as much as it is, you have to show up as an individual. And I just think we need more resources and more people talking about all of this to really help athletes maximize their full potential. But it's a massive piece. I think it's sometimes more important than learning a skill in football. I think it's more important to focus on that piece. So I think the biggest one is disappointment, or just the idea that they can't do it. Maybe opportunities for them haven't come at a quick enough time. It takes years or months depending on their goal to achieve. And players and people in general don't want to wait and figure it out. And I think also failure. Like, everybody fails in my business. I've had many failures, but I've had many successes. And I think it's, you learn something every day and you learn from that. And I think people need to fail or lose a big game, or, miss a penalty shot to win a championship. I think these are important lessons so people can focus and really build on for their mental health, and they're just them in general as a person. I think it teaches a lot of life skills. So I think those are some big ones that people can really look at it and know it's okay. And not everything in life is going to go the way you want and planned, and that's fine. Like, we take many detours and many roadblocks, but it's all part of the journey. Yeah, so a great piece of advice that I've learned over my courses is reflection. I think is number one. For me, we teach our athletes, and anyone can do reflection. Obviously, reflection looks different throughout the ages. So if you're talking to a youth player, putting it in a journal or in your notes on your phone. Usually when I'm going home from practice, I'm that crazy person on the road talking to myself, but I'm taking voice notes and messages to myself on what went right, what didn't go right, who performed, who didn't. So that way I can listen to it back on my way to the next training or the next match or the next event. And I can say, okay, this is what happened last time. Can I learn from that? And I think reflection is a huge one. And some people aren't great at taking notes. Maybe it's just even one or two words on a piece of paper, or on your phone, or just a reflection even in your mind that you can kind of go back to and revisit. I think is number one. And again, I know some people struggle with doing it daily, but if you're doing it around game time or performance days, or you're going even for a lift at the gym, taking those notes I think is great. And the best piece of advice I got going through my coaching journey, and something that I use daily, is reflection. Think is communication, and checking in with the people that surround you, just checking in. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, even a simple text message or a voice note or something to say, hey, what can I improve on? Or I know today wasn't my best day, but this is what's happening. I'm going through A, B, and C. And just letting people be aware, and being vulnerable. Like, people, I know, always sometimes come off as a strong exterior, but we don't know what's going on inside. And the more we can surround ourselves with the right people in our circle, the more hopefully players or people in general can open up to and say, I didn't understand what we were doing at practice, or I'm going through this at home in my home life, or something. And having people just listen, and being able to listen, and help those people out through those times. But I think that's the key as well for the mental side of things, is relying on other people, and knowing the people in your circle will help you out. My journey to Italy, when I was 14, was a great journey. I was happy that it happened, but the reason why it happened was, our province has tryouts for 13-year-olds, to make the province's team, and then compete across the nation. And I was one of the last players to get cut. And at 13, it was hard to really process that, as to why I wasn't chosen, why I didn't make it. There wasn't a lot of feedback back then, with people. You just kind of got a letter in the mail. There wasn't a lot of, hey, this is what you could have done. So I took it as, still to this day, not knowing why. And I think if I knew why, I would have went and corrected it. But I think that's where I kind of happened to be in Italy. It was kind of a second shot at, I knew my level. I knew I was at a better level than some people I saw. And again, life is about opinions, and one person's opinion of me not making a team wasn't going to change it. And it took me a while to realize that. But that's why I found myself in another country, is I knew I could do it. And then I found myself moving up through the rankings all the way into a national program. And I think having that drive and that motivation really helped. But wasn't nice to hear. Even if you lose your job, or you're cut from a program at any age, when we face the disappointment, or something negative, it could affect you. But I think it's having a strong exterior. And I always, when in my day-to-day life, if something doesn't go right, I always refer back to that in the back of my mind, and that scenario that I overcame it. And within 6 months, I'm playing in front of thousands of people with a national program when I was just cut. So I think that's something I always go back on. And I think people can really figure something out that happened in their life, and what was the positive outcome of that. Visualization would be number one for me. I still do it to this day. If I can get to a pitch earlier, and walk the pitch and have that reflection time. In football, a lot of coaches make players go and pick up, equipment, or collect soccer balls, or footballs, or whatnot. I'm fine doing that, because it's my time to reflect. And so I think that's where I learn the most, is in moments reflecting. On the field, the game is so quick, so you need to understand and reflect, and things change, and you have to have that mindset to always be on the go. So I think that helps me in my everyday life as well. I think sport in general really helps human beings in life skills. So I think I use that now, where I'm always kind of reflecting and scanning, and even when you drive, you're scanning, and all of that. So I think it's a life skill. But I think at my high, that's the best thing that I do, is that reflection piece, and that way of thinking. It really helps me in everyday life, and as a coach. Amazing timing, because we've just started some programs with some teams, and we have our first meeting tonight around the reflection piece and journaling, and all of that. So I think that is something we hone in on. And we want to have open conversations with players. I think, to the ages we're coaching, sometimes parents are still involved in making decisions or speaking to players. But what we want to create in our programs is fostering those relationships, where a player feels comfortable coming up to the staff to say, hey, Coach Maria or whoever, I'm not having the best day, or what can I work on, and feeling that confidence. Because if we can build it in young athletes to be able to communicate to their superiors and their coaches, I think will better them in everyday life, as well as being able to have those communications and those relationships with their coaches. And again, if players don't feel comfortable saying it in face to face, we're happy with messages or emails or chats about that, or a phone call. Because some people, it's hard to go up to anyone and just have that if you're not that type of person, right? And that's fine, but it's finding ways to have that communication. And I think for us, communication is number one. I send out daily emails sometimes to my parents, but I want them to know everything that's happening, so that way we're communicating and we're all on the same page, because it only helps better our programs. For me, being involved in all these coaching courses, everything is around like the four corners. So the social aspect, the physical, the technical, and then the mental block. So we focus on periodization. So it's not always about being on field and learning new skills and playing games. It's focusing on different aspects, being in the gym or having nights out as a group, where we don't focus on the football aspect. We go out and just have some fun. And I think that's important. And the mental side too, it's maybe not having a full practice, or doing something like just being in a classroom and doing team bonding activities or something. So I think for any person, periodization doesn't just happen in sport, it happens in everyday life. Putting aside time to reflect or do yoga or meditation or something, like having something every day helps. And I think that's what we are creating with our groups, and it's really helping. Tonight's our first pilot project. We've done it with teams in the past, but tonight's with a new group, and it's always worked in the past. I think the past couple of years have definitely been challenging, coming back from COVID and being cooped up inside and all of that, and not really being around sport for the year and a half that everybody across the world was in. So we've had to navigate through that, but I think that's the biggest thing, is having that periodization where we can focus on four corners and really help players succeed. Resources, research, there's tons of great stuff online. Social media has some great platforms and people to look at, or different books. My favorite book is called Grit. It's one of the best books out there for coaches. I suggest, and it was suggested to me to read it as a first time coach, and I own it now. I've read it a bunch of times, but it talks about kind of those four corners in everyday life, and in regards to different scenarios you'll face. So I think getting resources and research is number one. So yeah, I think if players or sorry, if coaches can really focus on those aspects and seek help, and like Twitter's a great platform, or X or whatever it's called now, to say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Does anyone have advice? There's so many great people online that we don't know, and strangers that are willing to help and have a conversation around the mental health side of things, and great resources out there. And you just it doesn't even need to be long every day. Even if you set aside 10-15 minutes to read one page of an article, I think will help coaches get better in what they do around the mental performance side of things. Coming up with a plan, and knowing that the plan might not go the way they want, but have a vision and have different visions. Have a main vision and then little sub visions that you want to get to. And if it's like if one of your visions is being able to compete in a marathon, well, you can't just go out and run a marathon without any training. And if you're just coming off of like I use this analogy, like if you need to do from the couch, like you need to just walk every day to get ready for the marathon, and then slowly you start to run and walk, and then slowly you start to just run, and then you start to run a little further. Like have long-term goals and short-term goals, and be okay that your short-term goal might not be overnight. It might take months, and your long-term goal might be years, but it's all part of the journey. I know a lot of players or people want to be professional athletes, or go on a scholarship, or play at college or university. Well, it takes time, and it won't happen overnight, and there's so many resources and things you need to do to get to that point. And having goals is number one. And I always say short-term goals, and you can have hundreds of short-term goals and check them off your list. And even if it's like eating healthy, and one meal a day you start eating healthy, like have little goals as well. I think is important, having those sub goals, short-term goals, and then all the way into your long-term, and be okay with failure, because it's going to happen to everybody.
That was Coach Maria, everyone. Don't forget to use her code Maria25 for a 25% discount on the app. I will see you there.